Disneyland has been talked about, written about, analyzed, and celebrated for more than 70 years. And we often talk about what it became, the magic, the memories, the moments. But far fewer times do we get to talk about the story about how it was made. Because before Disneyland was a destination, it was a dirt lot. And before it was magical, it was risky. Before it was polished, it was loud and chaotic and rushed and unfinished and extremely handcrafted. And my guest today has spent her career telling the stories that live behind the curtain. Leslie Iwerks is the Academy Award nominated filmmaker, the creator of the Imagineering story, which I love, by the way, and someone whose personal and professional history is deeply intertwined in Disney itself. And her latest documentary, Disneyland Handcrafted, draws more from than 100 hours of as yet unseen footage to show us how Disneyland was created not about the mythology, but really as a lived experience. And it's not just about nostalgia, it really is about intention and pressure and craftsmanship. Leslie, it is an absolute honor to meet you and especially to be able to chat with you in such a special place.
Thank you, I'll say, and that was really well stated.
Thank you. I have been an admirer of your work and your family's work and your history for a long time. You come from a family whose fingerprints are all over not just this place, but Disney as a whole. Your grandfather obviously was of Iwerks, who helped really sort of define Disney's visual language, and your dad, Don, helped capture how those stories were told. You've talked in the past about that legacy and how sort of the access that you have had brings a bit of responsibility, and you've taken that responsibility and told the Imagineering story and now Disneyland Handcrafted. And I have to get a sense that there isn't just a sense of that personal interest, but like you said, that responsibility in carrying on, in this case, finding and sharing those stories.
Yeah, I think the responsibility comes from doing these projects well and living up to the authenticity of them, of the real history. And in this case of Handcrafted, it really was about taking all this footage that we found, some of it that's been seen on the TV shows, but a lot of little moments and scenes that I've never seen anywhere, and really bringing those to life in a narrative structure, in a way that the audience can watch it and feel the pressure of what it must have been like to build that park in less than a year. And with this footage, when we found it, it came in reels. We had them transferred, and they were almost like work prints, where you got scenes all over the place, and you didn't know what was what, and you had to cut it up and start, almost like forensically piecing it together based on what plot of land is this and what direction are we pointing, this time-lapse camera, what is it shooting and what time frame was it in. And we were able to get the, really sit with it and sort of figure it out. But then ultimately we got support from like Tony Baxter and Don Hahn and Tim O'Day and Jonas Rivera, Pete Docter, and Tom Morris, who are my brain trust, to sort of look at some of these cuts and say, okay, does this feel like it's in the right order? Does anything seem in the wrong spot or out of place? And for the most part, we were pretty accurate. Some of them stumped you a little bit, but overall, it was cool to see it now in a chronology that you land in one land, and then you can kind of see its evolution. And then once we had that visually all put together, we then started looking for sound bites. And we scoured, hours and hours of archival transcripts, audio transcripts of people that were there on the ground, only first person, no talking head, no interviews. We did no filming or interviews for this. It was just all found footage. And I think that was what made it unique and different. It's easy to say, okay, pull all this together and then cut away to a still photo or somebody telling you something more about that moment, but we didn't want to do that. We just wanted you to live and almost experientially live through it and hear what these people are saying and feel it more than anything. So that was fun to do. And And then from there, you know, it was about how do you bring this silent footage to life, because it was all silent. And so we did a layer of audio editing with sound effects and everything. You know, it was kind of rough, but it was important for me and all of us to bring a real authenticity to this and to make sure that it felt like of the era. And you might not think that like the sound of a saw or a hammer or a tractor truck or what have you matters, but it does. I mean, we went to great lengths to get sound effects from the 50s, you know, and from that era, and then ultimately the Foley artists at Skywalker. And by the way, our mixer was Bonnie Wild, and she's phenomenal. And there's a Foley artist at Skywalker who basically spent an entire day with her team recreating these sounds directly in sync to picture. And you would not know that this was not shot with audio on the day, you know, that one of these cameramen who filmed it.
So there's a couple of things there. So one, the fact that there was such foresight for somebody to say, you know, we should really sort of chronicle exactly what's going on here. Just get this sort of background action, even with no audio being taken. But, you know, you keep talking about how you found this footage, and I want to pause there for a second, because I want to know, like, how did that actually happen? And then what was I get the feeling from even the short clip that I saw of Disneyland Handcrafted. Tell me about sort of your emotional response to finding this footage and then starting to be able to comb through it.
Well, so when we were doing the Imagineering story, we had asked the Film Archives, can you give us, you know, behind the scenes footage of, you know, the making of Disneyland or the making of Walt Disney World, any behind the scenes of all these parks, right? And they had sent us a ton of footage that we got, and we went through. And I know that some of this has been seen on the web before, and I know Tony Baxter has shown quite a bit of it out there as well. But there was a lot more than I'd ever seen anywhere. And so that's what we focused on. We focused on the stuff we hadn't seen before. Of course, there's going to be footage that, you know, are more establishing shots of lands and things like that you kind of want to show. But what really impressed me were some of these scenes of the people in the park working, like pulling the Mark Twain and trying to get that in, and working on the river, to hand building the train track. And it wasn't just about showing like a quick clip. It was about finding the shots within a scene that weren't always all together on these work prints that we got. Like, let's take for example just the railroad track alone. There was so many different angles of that scene, and so what we did was we created it as if it was those cameramen shot it for somebody to edit, like they imagined it to be. And no one's ever done that. And so what was so cool is I felt like when we really sat with this footage and started editing it together as it was a scene, a wide shot, a tight and over the shoulder, a low angle, a tight shot of the, you know, hammering of the nail. These things, you know, have never been edited together in a way that you could watch it as a scene. And that's what was the magic of what we did. You know, what we were able to find and piece together, and then to have we also had this amazing composer, Cyrus Reynolds, who I really said, I want this to feel like hand-forged music. Like, I want it to feel heavy, and like this is like the building of this amazing thing. And I want us to feel that pressure in the music. And he even used instrumentation. They scored this in Budapest with a whole orchestra, and they used sound effects in the instrumentation that sounded like the clanging of the railroad iron, you know, the track. So the music seamlessly integrates into the sound effects of that. So that was kind of just some of the tricks that we really tried to bring to this to make you feel like you were immersed in it. And then of course we mixed it in 5.1 and Dolby Atmos. And you know, Dolby Atmos is just when you're at Skywalker and you're mixing the hammering in the speakers behind you. I really wanted the audience to feel that they're sitting in the park and that they can hear everything going on around you. So all those little pieces are what kind of makes it a fun theatrical experience.
Yeah, I don't say it is. It's going to feel like that, and something that I don't want to watch certainly on my phone or on my laptop. I want to watch it in my living room with surround sound, because I think there's a feeling of being there. I think the sound has so much to do with it, and I have to imagine as a filmmaker, there's both challenges and, more importantly, I think, opportunity with taking that unpolished footage as opposed to taking something that somebody had sort of laid out and scripted and storyboarded, because it gives you sort of the creative freedom to help put those stories together. But you find this footage, and correct me if I'm wrong, you find all this incredible footage, but it was somebody else who came to you and said, Leslie, you need to make this into a documentary.
Well, actually, what happened was we were looking at all this footage when we were doing Imagineering Story, and my editors and I, Mo Stobie and Mark Catalina, they were the ones that said, maybe we could make this just complete verite footage and do it chronological, so you're sitting in it, and without interviews and all that, talking heads. And I'm like, that's a great idea. Let's do that. Let's do a proof of concept, and let's share it with Disney. And that's what happened. We had a 7-minute proof of concept that we cut together, and some of it had sound and some of it didn't. And you could really see once sound effects were added to it, it really brought to life. And then once you added the audio sound bites on top of that, that's really what helped to give it structure and meaning and emotion. And then we pitched that to Disney Plus, and they said, this is great. Marjan Javadi, who was at Disney Plus then, really believed in it and shepherded a development phase of it, which we got to like a 70-minute cut. But it was still rough. It was just a rough cut with not many audio bites or anything. And then the project kind of went on hold for a while with for whatever reasons, restructuring and things. And so it sat on the shelf, and until the day I met with Jason Recker at Disney, and Jason said, send me a link. And I sent him a link, and he was like, this is insane. This is so good, and we need to make this, and it should come out for the 70th anniversary of Disneyland, and we should just really make sure the world remembers what it took to build this park. So I was thankful that, as an artist, as a filmmaker, you can create all the projects you want, but it takes somebody within a system, an institution like Disney, to say, I believe in that, let's get it made.
A very wise man talked about it takes people to make the dream a reality, and clearly this was a project not just of you, but somebody that put it together. And speaking of Walt, we've heard stories of opening day and what that was like, but you call this the ultimate story of risk. And I really love the perspective of looking at Walt in terms of the enormous amount of pressure that I cannot fathom he was under. But from the few clips I did see, we didn't see a lot of that. We saw Walt smiling, we saw Walt having fun, we saw the dreamer and the doer. Talk about this, the pressure, and what you were able, and what we are, as who get to see it, are going to sort of understand about this abstract and physical and audible and sort of constant pressure that Walt and the team was on.
So once he signed the deal with ABC, they basically shook hands and said, this is going to be within a year. This has to be built. We're announcing it midsummer 1955, and that was it. So he had to marshal all his teams, all his people, under his singular vision to bring this to life, to bring this virtually impossible dream to life. And that's what he did. And he drove hard on everybody to get this done. And what I found fascinating when some of these sound bites was that first person interviews was that they didn't have it all baked in right at the beginning. They were doing it as they went. Mm-hmm. They were evolving, and it was so a lot of trial by fire, a lot of new ideas coming in late in the game, and even I was shocked to learn that Tomorrowland was so late, like months before the park opened. And I just don't even know how they do that. You can't even remodel a kitchen in a year now. So to think that they built an entire, basically a city within a city in less than a year, that was incredible.
And something that had never been done before, too.
Right.
And I love the title. I love the fact that it's handcrafted. I love that you show so many of the craftsmen and artists that put this together, who are using their skills and their experience. My hope is that somebody is going to see this, watching it with their kids, and go, that's your grandfather. That's your grandfather who's helping to paint this area, to help put this together. I love the fact that there is also attention and focus on the individual and collective workers whose names we've never heard before, we might never ever get to know, but just how important they were in terms of making this dream a reality.
Yeah, I mean, it really was a team effort, and when you think about Walt's idea to create a place of happiness for families to come to, and the impact that it's had all these years, I don't know another site on the planet that is such a pilgrimage site for so many people over time, meaning, children, and then those children experience it, then they get older and teenagers and adults, and now with kids, and then those grandchildren that they bring, and then ultimately it's all over again. Then there's this energy around a Disney experience at a park that is unlike anything else. And I think Walt really knew that, and he told his designers, I want to ask you that there's nothing more important than, no matter anything you do that I ask you to do, the main thing I want is a smile on their faces when they leave this attraction, when they leave this park. And that, to me, is what a great gift for a CEO that's his goal, that people have a smile when they leave.
I absolutely love the fact that you called Disneyland as the blueprint for happiness, and more importantly, that Walt is the original seed that this all grew from. Was there anything that you maybe learned or took away about Walt from this, or that you hope that we who get to watch this will take away from it?
I think that it's the ultimate risk that he took. It was a high wire act of finance and reputation. If it had failed, he would have lost his reputation. He would have lost a lot of money. And I think, I'm in awe of the risk that he took for the betterment of humanity. He died, about 10 years later, and look what he left for everybody, 12 parks around the world that continue to get better and better and better and more exciting for new generations of people. And I'm just, honored that I, was able to take this footage with my team and build something that the world can see and appreciate in a new way, appreciate Disneyland in a new way, and appreciate what Walt did, what he sacrificed to bring it to life.
And I think that's what's going to happen. I'm going to Disneyland tomorrow, and I know just based on the little I've seen, I'm going to look at it differently, and I think that the long-term impact that this is going to have on guests generationally who go to Disneyland is going to be very, very profound. I think what you captured and what you're able to put together is absolutely beautiful, and again, like you said, is a blueprint for happiness. Thank you so much for continuing to preserve Walt's story and the Craftsman story and the Disneyland story for all of us who are guests, and trusting us with this sort of unpolished truth that you're going to put together in Disneyland Handcrafted. So, Leslie Iwerks, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks for coming all the way out here.
I would not have missed it.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Yay.
God, I have so much. Leslie, we need more time together.